Welcome back. We are studying the second chapter of Qiddush HaHodesh of Rambam. This is towards the end of Sefer Zemanim. This chapter will deal with the acceptance of the testimony of the two witnesses that are going to let us know that they have seen the moon, thereby establishing the basis for Qiddush HaHodesh done by the Bet Din. So a couple of things, a couple of clarifications from last chapter, reminders. Number one, it's not that we know. It's not an evidentiary basis. It's not that we know that the moon was seen because of the two witnesses. The Bet Din knows that from beforehand. They do their calculations. They know exactly. The moon is very predictable, and you can predict exactly where and how it's going to look just through mathematical calculations. The two witnesses are Gezerat HaKatuv. The Torah said that we should do it through two witnesses, and that's what we do. Number two, although we are doing this through two witnesses, what's going to actually legally declare the day Rosh Chodesh is the Bet Din, not the Aidin. The Bet Din then is the one responsible to first calculate on their own when the day is supposed to be, then to go through the process of accepting the witnesses, and that's what this chapter is about. And number three, the subject of the next chapter, it's going to be how to then let the rest of the people know that Rosh Chodesh has been declared. Halacha Aleph. אין קשר לעדות ראש חודש, אין קשר לעדות ראש החודש, אלא שני אנשים כשרים הראויים להעיד בכל דבר ודבר. We require for the testimony over the new moon, the new month, two witnesses that are fit to render testimony for any other subject. אבל נשים ועבדים הרי כשאר פסולי עדות ואין מעידים. However, women and servants, they are like other people who are not fit to give testimony in a Jewish law proceeding, and therefore they should not give a testimony over the moon either. אב ובנו שראו את הירח ילכו לבית דין להעיד לא מפני שידעו את החודש כשרה בקרובים, אלא שאם ימסה אחד מהם פסול מפני שהוא גזלן וכיוצא בו משאר הפסלנות, יצרף השני אחר ויעיד. If a father and son, or I presume a brother with his brother, they experience, they see the moon, and they want to give a testimony, they should both come, not because we are going to accept their joint testimony. As we are going to start in Chot Aiduyot, you may not accept the testimony of two people who are relatives, who are close relatives one to the other, but rather because if it turns out that one of them is for any reason invalidated, one of the two witnesses will take the other one with a third person. וכל הפסול לעדות מדברי סופרים אף על פי שהוא קשה מן התורה פסול לעדות החודש. And everyone, any person who is פסול לעדות, who is unfit to give a testimony because of any disqualification that is from חכמים, for example, משחק בקובייה, someone who is a gambler, a professional gambler, then they should also be disqualified from עדות החודש, even though this is עדות מדאורייתא, and the disqualification is the Rabbanan, the disqualification just invalidates them from serving as witnesses for anything, including Qiddush HaHodesh. הלכה ב' דין תורה שאין מדקדקים בעדות החודש, אפילו קידשו את החודש על פי העדים ונמצאו זוממים בעדות זו, הרי זה מקודש. From the Torah we know that once this testimony is accepted, we don't scrutinize it too much, and even if it turns out after the Qiddush HaHodesh that these two witnesses could not have been where they said they were to witness the moon, in other words, they are zomemim, this does not affect the actual act of Qiddush HaHodesh. לפיכך, given that this is the case, היו בראשונה מקבלים עדות החודש מכל אדם מישראל. At first, they would accept עדות החודש from anyone from the Jewish people. שכל ישראל בחזקת כשרות עד שיוודע לך שזה פסול. Because the presumption is that every single Jew, every single member of Am Yisrael has a presumption of reliability as a witness, unless there is a reason to think otherwise. However, since the heretics, and this refers to the early Christians, since they started to do everything that they could to undermine the rabbinic system, and they would hire fake witnesses, and they would try to mess up our calendar in order to embarrass the Jewish court, and so on and so forth, והיו שוכרים אנשים להעיד שראו והם לא ראו. They used to rent or hire people to say that they saw the moon when they really had not. התקינו שלא יקבלו בדין עדות החודש, אלא מעידים שמכירים בדין אותם שהם כשרים. Then they decreed that the bed din would only accept a testimony of people who have been certified as reliable witness. In other words, the witness was not okay unless he was on that list. ושיהיו דורשים וחוקרים בעדותם. And furthermore, they also required that their testimony be further scrutinized to make sure that they were not just making this up, being hired by the מינים. הלכה ג' לפיכך, אם לא יהיו בית דין יודעים את העדים שראו את הירח, משלחים אנשי העיר שנראה בה עם העדים שראו עדים אחרים שמזכין אותם לבית דין, ומודיעין אותם שאלו כשרים הן, ואחר כך מקבלים מהם. So what do you do if two people saw the moon and they know they are not on the list on the white list of the bed din that are going to be accepted? So you have to send 4 people. You have to send 2 witnesses to say that they saw the moon, and 2 other witnesses sent by the court of the city from which the 2 people come from. And this second pair of witnesses are going to testify that these 2 people are indeed reliable in whatever they have to say. הלכה ד' בית דין מחשבים בדרכים שההסתגננים מחשבים בהם ויודעים על לבנה כשתראה בחודש זה, אם תהיה בצפון השמש או בדרומה, ואם תהיה רחבה או קצרה. The bed din are the ones who, through their calculations, astronomical calculations, they know exactly when the moon is going to be seen in any given month, if it's going to be tending north or south in relative to the sun. In other words, if you draw a line between the earth and the sun, and the moon for Rosh Chodesh needs to be exactly in between them, but it's never going to be perfectly aligned. Maybe sometimes it's going to be perfectly aligned, but most times it's going to be either a little bit above or below that line, namely north or south. ואם תהיה רחבה או קצרה, and if the moon is seen, if that line that you see at the very first night of the month is going to be a long line or a short line, ולכאן יהיו ראשי קרני הנוטין, also the line which side of the moon is the one that has an angle that permits a sliver, a little bit of light to reflect from the sun. That's the string that is seen. So the beit din know exactly all of these things. וכשיבואו העדים להעיד בודקים אותם. And then once they know this, when the witnesses come, they can ask them, כיצד ראיתם אותה בצפון או בדרום? How have you seen this moon? Have you seen it tending north or turning south? להיכן היו קרני הנוטות? Also describe to us how was this line? Where was it open? Where was it closed? כמה הייתה גבוהה בראיית עיניכם? Above the horizon, how far above the horizon, more or less, do you think it was? וכמה הייתה רחבה? And how large was it? אם נמצאו דבריהם מכוונים למה שנודע בחשבון, מקבלים אותם. If what they say fits the astronomical calculations, they accept them. ואם לא נמצאו דבריהם מכוונים, if however what they say is inconsistent with what the beit din independently knows is the case through their calculations, they are not accepted. In other words, it's not about the testimony, it's about what the beit din knows already through their astronomical calculations. הלכה ה' אמרו העדים ראינו במים ובאבים ובעששית. If the העדים say we saw it through the reflection on the water, or we saw it through clouds, or we saw it through some kind of a glass, there is 2 explanations about the glass. One, we saw it as a reflection on a glass. The other one is we saw it through the refraction that permeates through a glass material. En zo re'iyah, this is not enough of an experience on which they can give a testimony. ואין מקדשין על ראייה זו, and this is not enough to do קידוש החודש. אמר אחד, ראיתיו גבוה בעיניי כמו 2 קומות, ואמר השני כמו 3 קומות היה גבוה, מצטרפין. If when they are asked, so how tall, more or less, above the horizon was it? One of them says, about 2 floors up. and one says about 3 floors up independently, they question them independently, mistarefim. Their error, their discrepancy, is a discrepancy that is likely to not have been as a result of their lying or of their having seen something else. Rather, everyone estimates height differently, and this is off in a small enough magnitude that it's not significant. אמר האחד כמו 3 קומות והשני אומר כמו 5, אין מצטרפים. However, if one says about 3 floors high and the other one says about 5 floors high, then this is enough of a spread that they are deemed to be inconsistent with one another. ומצטרף האחד מהם עם שני שיעיד כמותו, יהיה ביניהם קומה אחת. And however, either of them, we don't disqualify each of them, we disqualify both of them because they're inconsistent with one another. But if a third person comes and that third person's testimony is equal to either of them, or not more than 1 floor apart from either of them, then we take the ones that are most consistent, and they are enough to establish this testimony. הלכה ו' אמרו ראינו בלא כוונה, וכיוון שהתבוננו בו ונתכוונו לראותו להעיד שוב לא ראינוהו, אין זו עדות ואין מקדשין עליה, שמעבים נתקשרו ונראו כלבנה והלכו להם. If they say, we think we saw it, and we saw it with the corner of our eyes, but then when we tried to see it and we focused, we weren't able to find it anymore, then the assumption is that they probably saw something that looked like the moon, but it wasn't the moon, because the moon is not meant to disappear after you see it once, and therefore we don't accept their testimony. אמרו עדים ראינוהו ביום 29 שחרית במזרח קודש לעלי השמש, וראינוהו ערבים במערב בליל 30, הרי אלו נאמנים ומקדשים על ראייה זו, שהרי ראוהו בזמנו. אבל הראייה שאמרו שראו בשחרית אין נזקקין לה, שאין אנו אחראים לראיית שחרית, וידוע שהערבים כשנתקשרו ונראה להם כלבנה. So let's say the 2 witnesses say, the morning, right before sunrise, we saw the moon on the east. And then at night, after nightfall, we saw the moon on the west. Now that's impossible for the moon to be on the east and on the west in the spread of 12 hours. However, if the second time was a time on which the moon should have been seen, namely the night of the 30th day of the month, as we explained in the last chapter, then we accept this testimony, and the presumption is that the first sighting in the morning really was a non-sighting. It wasn't the moon. It must have been a reflection of the rays of the sun that were just starting to come, because it was right before sunrise, and they reflected on some clouds, and it looked to them like the moon. וכן אם ראוהו בזמנו ובליל עיבורו לא נראה, הרי אלו נאמנים שאין אנו אחראים אלא לראייה ליל 30 בלבד. Also, if they saw it on its time, in other words, they saw it on the night of the 30th, which would make the prior month retroactively be 29 days, and this day, the day right after the night of the 30th, retroactively is declared to have been Rosh HaHodesh, the first day of the next month. But then the night after they declare Rosh HaHodesh, they look up and they don't see it anymore. They still are reliable witnesses. We still accept their testimony because we only care about what's seen on that night. A couple of points about this very interesting halakha. Number one, it's all clearer when you remind yourselves that what the witnesses are doing is not establishing to us when the moon was actually seen. We don't need them for that. The Beit Din was sophisticated enough to know exactly when and how the moon should be seen. In fact, we rely much more on the calculations than on their testimony, because if their testimony is inconsistent with the calculations, we reject the testimony. Now, one point about this halakha, this was exactly the mahloket that caused something a little short of a revolution in the Academy of Yavne. To give you a little bit of background, this is a very, very interesting episode in rabbinic history. Rabban Yochanan Mezakai saved Yahadut as we know it for all intents and purposes. He escaped Yerushalayim when it was held by the rebels and they were rebelling against the Romans. He pretty much gave himself up to Vespasian, and he asked for three things. One of the things he asked for is to leave him a center of study in the city of Yavne. And after Yerushalayim was destroyed, the Torah center was in Yavne under the leadership of Shushelet Rabban Gamliel. Rabban Gamliel, the grandson of Hillel Hazaken, was the leader in all of this. That's Rabban Gamliel Hazaken. Then his grandson, Rabban Gamliel Miyavne, was the one around this time when this is happening. And so he was the chief of the Bet Din, and it happened exactly as this is described here. Two witnesses came and they said, we saw the moon on the night, the eve of the 30th. He accepted the testimony. Then the night after that, between the 30th and the 31st, which should have been now after the declared Rosh Chodesh, it became the night between the 1st and the 2nd of the month. Everyone looks up to the sky and the moon is not there to be seen. Rabbi Yehoshua, the teacher of Rabbi Akiva, got very, very upset about this. He said, it's impossible. This cannot be the case. Their testimony must have been fake. And therefore, this is not Rosh Chodesh. The Rosh Chodesh should have been a Rosh Chodesh Me'ubar. Rosh Chodesh should have been the next day. And this was apparently Tishrei. Apparently it was a month of Tishrei, which affected not only Rosh Hashanah. Actually, it did not affect Rosh Hashanah because Rosh Hashanah we always do 2 days anyways, but it affected Yom Kippur. So he was very upset, Rabbi Yehoshua. He started asking Chachamim. They all told him, you have to accept it. You have to accept this ruling. And then Rabban Gamliel, when he heard he was being challenged by Rabbi Yehoshua in front of everyone, he told him, Rabbi Yehoshua, get up in the middle of the class. And he said, now I want everyone to know, I'm demanding of you that you come here to the Bet Midrash with your wallet, with your bag, in other words, things that you cannot do on that day, on the day that according to your calculation would have been Yom Kippurim, and according to my calculation is really the eve of Yom Kippurim, because we declared Rosh Chodesh the day before. Rabbi Yehoshua agreed, and he did so. So the point, by the way, at the end, politically speaking, Rabban Gamliel lost, and he lost the yeshiva to Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah. But it's a very interesting story. It's a very interesting episode that really shaped our history. But more than that, I just want to explain that what was happening at that moment is exactly what this halacha says, and it seems to be Rabban Gamliel was correct. Astronomically, Rabban Gamliel was correct. It can be that the moon is on the first sighting. It's right under the line, like let's say just south of this straight line drawn between Earth and the sun, and then the next day, although more of it from the side is exposed to the sun and you should see a thicker line, not a thinner line that disappears, but if it comes right in between the sun and Earth, what happens is you have a lunar eclipse. So that could have happened. That is probably what happened. And that is why Rabban Gamliel was actually correct. And the witnesses were true witnesses, and they had seen it the day before, and the next day it wasn't there anymore. Just something interesting, but the main point is, we are not really relying on this sighting for Qiddush HaHodesh. This is just part of the ritual process of it. הלכה זין. כיצד מקבלים עדות החודש? How is עדות החודש accepted? כל מי שראוי להעיד שראה את הירח בא לבית דין. Every person that knows that they could be a good witness and they saw the moon, they should come to the Bet Din. Every single person. If it's 20,000 people, they should. ובית דין מכניסים אותם כולם למקום אחד, and the Bet Din prepares a large hall to receive all of them. ועושים להם סעודות גדולות, they prepare for them large banquets, כדי שיהיו העם רגילים לבוא, to entice the people and to accustom them to come. וזוג שבראשון בודקים אותו ראשון בבדיקות שאמרנו, it's a first in, first out. In other words, the first witnesses are the first ones to give their testimony. מכניסים את הגדול ושואלים אותו, and among the two people that come to give their testimony, you take the greater one, the most respectable one of the two. נמצאו דבריו מכוונים לחשבון, if the more respectable of the two says something that is consistent with the calculations that בית דין have, מכניסים את חברו. Then you call the second one. נמצאו דבריהם מכוונים, if they both are consistent with one another, עדותם קיימת. They accept their testimony. ושאר כל הזוגות, and the rest, what happens to the other 1,998 that came? So you can also bring them in. You actually do bring them in. You ask them the same questions, one after the other, at least the very basic questions. לא שצריכים להם, not because they make any difference at this point, אלא כדי שלא יסעו בפחי נפש, כדי שיהיו רגילים לבוא, but rather, again, to entice them to continue coming, not to discourage anyone. Imagine the feeling, you make your way all the way from Be'er Sheva to Yerushalayim because you saw the moon, and then as you arrive there, you're tired, you put all of this effort, you hear that someone just came before you and they already did Qiddush HaHodesh because of them. So everyone gets their chance, their day in court, as it said. הלכה ח' ואחר כך, אחר שתקיים העדות, and after this עדות is validated, this testimony is validated, ראש בית דין אומר מקודש, the head, the chief justice of the Supreme Court says, מקודש, the month has been, this day has been declared distinguished. It's a special day. It's the first day of the next month. וכל העמונים אחריו, מקודש, מקודש. And the rest of the people answer after him twice, indeed it is מקודש, indeed it is מקודש. ואין מקדשים את החודש אלא בשלושה. קידוש החודש, as I corrected myself in the first chapter, it's not the beit din hagadol that needs to do it, but needs to be a beit din of at least 3 people. ואין מחשבים אלא בשלושה. Also the calculations preceding the acceptance of the testimony need to be done by a beit din of 3 people. It seems that they would actually sit down in session and go through diagrams and actually calculate exactly where the moon should be that month. This should also be done with 3 people at least. ואין מקדשין אלא חודש שנראה בזמנו. The only Qiddush HaHodesh that's done is a Qiddush HaHodesh of a moon that was sighted on the 30th day of the month. If it was sighted on the 31st, it makes absolutely no difference. ואין מקדשים אלא ביום. We also do Qiddush HaHodesh only the day, only the morning after this sighting. ואם קידשוהו בלילה, אינו מקודש. And although sometimes we say that if you do something against the initial instructions, it counts. In this case, it would not count if they did it at night. אפילו ראו בדין וכל ישראל ולא אמרו בדין מקודש על שחשיכה ליל אחד או 30, even if the בית דין has seen it and all עם ישראל has seen it, the בית דין did not say מקודש until the night of the 31st, או שנחקרו העדים ולא הספיקו בית דין לומר מקודש על שחשיכה ליל אחד או 30, אין מקדשים אותו, or if the בית דין only finished taking the testimony towards the end of the 30th day, and there wasn't enough time to say מקודש while it was still daylight, אין מקדשים אותו, then that's enough to make the Chodesh, although people saw the moon, and the moon indeed did appear on the 30th day, still the Beit Din would not have said Mekudash until, because the Beit Din did not have enough time to say Mekudash during the day, then we make this month Chodesh Me'ubar, and the next month begins the day after. Just to show you how this positive factor, the one trigger for Qiddush HaHodesh is a declaration of the Beit Din. And even if everything else aligned, and just the timing didn't align, they weren't able to do so while it was still daytime during the 30th day, then there is no Rosh Chodesh. ולא יהיה ראש חודש אלא יום אחד ושלושים אף על פי שנראה בליל שלושים. And therefore Rosh Chodesh will only be the 31st day, even though it had been seen on the 30th day. שאין הראייה קובעת, because it's not the sighting what matters, אלא בית דין שאמרו מקודש הם שקובעים, rather is the בית דין saying the word מקודש what matters, what makes a difference. הלכה ט' ראוהו בית דין עצמם בסוף יום 9 ו-20. The בית דין themselves, they were the ones who saw it at the end of the 29th day, in other words, the night between 29 and 30. אם עדיין לא יסע כוכב בליל 30 בדין אומרים מקודש מקודש שעדיין יום הוא. ואם ראוהו בליל 30 אחר שיסעו שני כוכבים למחר מושבים בשני דיינים אצל אחד מהם ויעידו הם השני בפני השלושה ויקדשו השלושה. So this is seen, let's say that the 30th day is going to be a Tuesday and the night between the 29th and the 30th is Monday late afternoon. Monday late afternoon, the moon sometimes can be seen before it's Set HaKochavim. So let's say the Bet Din saw it before the night of the 30th begin. The Bet Din in Yerushalayim saw it. And it still is daytime. So even though it's sort of like a day earlier, they can do Qiddush HaHodesh right then. And then the next day becomes Rosh Chodesh. If they didn't have enough time, then the Bet Din is not really functioning as a Bet Din because it's nighttime. There is no Bet Din at night. And therefore, it's as if they were three people seeing these. So you take two of them as witnesses, and the next day they're going to render a testimony like everyone else. ואם ראו בליל 30 אחר שיעשו שני כוכבים למחר מושיבים שני דיינים אצל אחד מהם ויעידו עם השיניים בפני השלושה ויקדשו השלושה. I wasn't sure if I read this or not, but this is just what we just explained. הלכה י' the last הלכה of the chapter. בית דין שקידשו את החודש בין שוררים במוטעים בין אנוסין, הרי זה מקודש. If a בית דין did קידוש החודש, whether they were wrong or misinformed or they were forced to do so, someone was forcing them, this is mekudash. The Chodesh has become mekudash regardless of the calculations. וחייבין הכל, לתקן המועדות על יום שקידשו בו, and everyone must do the holidays according to this declaration that this Bet Din has done, regardless of whether or not it's not about science, it's not about their correctness or not. It's about whether or not they declared it. I said before the most important thing is the calculations. That is what's most important to the Bet Din. But what's most important to the people is the declaration of the Bet Din. And we don't pay attention to what brought them to that declaration. Even if someone happens to know for a fact that they are mistaken, that he knows that the moon could not have been seen that day, and they still did Qiddush HaHodesh, still he must follow their lead, and he must do the Mu'adot like they declared them. Because as we said, we started saying this in the first chapter, this is not a private, a personal mitzvah. The calendar, when a month begins, when a month ends, is a national determination. The reasons for it are secondary, they don't matter. And the nation as a whole is the one that's going to determine. Obviously, individuals need to obey what the nation has decided. And you know what? The same legislator, the same God who told us to do the Mo'adot, who told us to do Pesach on the 15th of Nisan, he's the one who told us to listen to the Bet Din and to do the Mo'ed on the 15th day after the Rosh Chodesh, as was declared by that Bet Din. Like it is said in the Torah several times, the ones that you shall declare. You, Am Yisrael, the nation as a whole, shall declare. That's how the holidays become holidays, as we declare them. And every single beracha we say, as we are about to say in a few days, Be'ezrat Hashem on Pesach, we say, Mekadesh Israel v'hazemanim. We say God is the one who sanctifies, who sets apart Israel, and through Israel, he sanctifies the holidays. There is nothing holy, there is nothing special about the day itself. What's special here is Am Yisrael, and it's Am Yisrael's declaration of this day as special what makes it special. So Harambam, just as a last word, would have a very hard time accepting, paying attention, respecting, not thinking that it's pagan, all of those sayings that people have of any given day having any special cosmic sacrality. I've heard very weird sayings, really, Ribono Shel Olam, they're terrible, that they say, you know why Am Yisrael left Mitzrayim the 15th day? Because the 15th day was special. No, it's the opposite. So they have the beginning became the end became the beginning, the cause and the effect, everything is mixed up. This is not Harambam's way. According to Rambam, according to Chachamim, it's very clear what's holy is Am Yisrael, and what's holy about the day is the fact that it follows from a declaration of Am Yisrael of the Rosh Chodesh having been on a certain day. The day itself, the positioning of the moon itself, has no relevance. It has relevance for the Goyim, for the pagans, for astrologists, for people who think that that the moon and the sun are worthy of being worshipped or have any sacrality. Am Yisrael, we have been brought by the Torah far above and beyond this. We are not worshippers of stars or of moons or of suns. It's not about them. It's about Am Yisrael and our perception of them. And through that perception, the choice, the decision we make to declare a day Rosh Chodesh. So with that, we finish the second chapter. We'll begin the third chapter very, very briefly.